Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Ken Magma Marshall, who is the Chief Growth Officer and Managing Partner at RevenueZen. Ken, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. Super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I always love to kind of go, okay, I've never heard of this company before, but it makes me think, or, is your company focused on? And right before we started recording, you were talking about, hey, I'm sitting here chilling in New York with my dog laying on the couch, and it's like, that just feels so cool. And it's like, man, that just resonates with RevenueZen. And that must be a great feel that you carry throughout personal life, professional life. So let's jump into a fun interview. Give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point.
Sure. And I mean, it is funny because we always say RevenueZen for ourselves and our clients, right? And our employees. So, all three of us, the execs, the employees, the clients, we're all looking for that, right? And so, the long and short of it is, with a little bit of jargon, we help high-growth B2B SaaS and professional service companies increase their pipeline using SEO, content, and LinkedIn strategies. I'm sure we'll dive into that. Yeah. But as far as me, I was that kid who, I had a lawnmower that I would push around my neighborhood. I sold some trash from my neighbors on my parents' yard at a yard sale. Anything I could do to make $1 and see what I was capable of, really. I mean, and 8, 9 failed businesses to get to the one that sold to, now RevenueZen. And so a lot of lessons along the way. So it's been quite the journey.
I think that is so neat because I've got a son who's 17 and he's got a lawn care business, and it's so neat to see what he has learned from what I've worked with him on. And then he just goes out and hustles. And, we'll have, I'm just outside of Denver, Colorado, and we'll have snow and get, 4, 5, 6 inches. And he'll text his clients and go, you ready for the snow blow? And it's like 2.5 hours later, here you go, $100. So it's really neat to see that embedded from an early age with yourself. So what were some of those lessons that you can remember from, selling neighbors trash to some of those odd jobs you did that then helped you start that first business and then move on to the next and the next?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that came out of all of those and those types of experiences, and I think this applies to sort of everybody, is you learn a lot about what you want to do and what you might not ever want to do again. Yeah. And I think, introspection and perspective are amazing and underutilized. And so, digging holes all summer in the August heat taught me a few things, that it's easy to make, $1,000. However, if I have to keep doing this for 30 years, my spine won't work. Yeah. And so, it started teaching me, I need, knowledge work or, scaling and a business. All of these things have sort of been, or my blogs, right? Those were great, got traffic, even had a few writers, barely made a couple $100. So max effort, no business model, right? So doing these things and doing a variety of things, I think helps bring what you want to do into focus and what you're good at.
It reminds me of something I learned years and years ago about the to-do list. And while we need a to-do list, we also need a what? Not to-do list, right? It's like, I've learned this about myself and my skills and my business and my, passions and where I'm good. So you know what? I'm not going to do this because someone else needs to do it. Or I'm not going to dig ditches in the hot sun because it's not sustainable. So that's a really great lesson that everybody needs to think about is, if you're a founder or you're running your business as an entrepreneur, there's things that you could be doing right now that is it really your cup of tea, but you got to do it right this minute. But the first chance you get to offload it to a team member, VA, something like that, so that you're in your area of expertise, now you start to shine. I think that's a huge piece.
Sure. And if you're like me, I think my therapist or somebody called it superhero syndrome or Superman syndrome, where everything seems urgent because you have such a big sort of heart to serve. But urgency and prioritization, and importance are very different. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the Eisenhower matrix, but I do that regularly. And I recommend that anybody that's like me, reprioritize often, because or else you'll just get swamped with helping.
No, give us the 30,000-foot Reader's Digest version of the Eisenhower matrix.
Got it. So, I mean, picture 4 quadrants, right? A big square with a line going down top to bottom and then left to right. So you've got quadrant, the left top, left bottom, right bottom. And so essentially there's, now again, I'm getting into math and the X and Y axis, but along the bottom, is like, how important is this? And then how urgent is this? And so essentially we sort of nestle into I got to do everything that's urgent, which if you look at it from my perspective, those end up being the least important tasks, especially for the business as an executive. You want to be in that upper right-hand quadrant, which is like important things that aren't urgent, but I mean, essentially, those are the things you need to make as much time for meaningfully and intentionally, because or else you'll just get swept up in the sort of non-important but high urgency thing. So it's just a way to get the thoughts out of the crazy beehive that is our mind and look at it visually and say, oh, I actually didn't need to check Slack for 2 hours, and I thought I was busy, but I actually just watched YouTube for an hour. So
if you think about it, those urgent, high-value tasks that need to be done right this second, if you had put a pin in that and backtracked a period of time, hours, a couple days, and thought ahead and planned ahead, you could have put those same tasks in the urgent, important, but not time-sensitive, but I got to get to it, where you can really focus your energy on that, focus your attention, do it well, think through it, maybe do a first pass and then come back the next day. But yet too many times we don't plan ahead enough, and now everything's urgent because it's got to get done now, and you just are behind the 8 ball.
Yep, exactly.
That's huge. So talk about your first agency. What was that like, and what made you think I need to start this business?
Yeah, so I mean, believe it or not, RevenueZen is it's the result of a merger that I went through last February, and so I was always really interested in people. Like behavioral psychology would probably be my track in life if I wasn't interested in money and autonomy as a business owner and entrepreneur. I'm just fascinated by people-to-people interaction. So I thought, when I was in college, sales makes perfect sense. I'm personable. I'm extroverted. Why not? But a teacher one day, was walking me through potential paths, and she's like, hey, I was kind of burnt out over sales after looking at a few sales jobs. And she was like, check out this thing called digital technology and culture, which was like 9 years ago, right? Nobody knew what that was. That wasn't a major. And so anyway, I remember exploring it, and I was just thinking to myself, like, this is amazing. You can manipulate search engines to do your bidding. I thought it was some kind of black box wizardry. So fast forward, after working through 2 agencies in SEO, I mean, I was pretty hooked, and I was pretty confident in myself that I could replicate the efforts of those 2 agencies. No, shout out to those 2 owners. They're amazing people, but I knew I could do it. And so I spent the next 3.5 years up until last February building out, an SEO, B2B SEO focused agency. And, we did quite well. I think I had a run rate of $600,000, $700,000 when I sold, and RevenueZen was focused on lead generation and LinkedIn, and they were really amazing. But I'm like, hey, this inbound marketing thing is only going to get more important in a B2B, buyer's journey, like the kind of content they consume, why they consume it. So let's shift our focus a little bit, and now we're here. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I personally love the old timey books, from books from the 1920s and the Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hills and things like that, because I find that many of those same principles are the same tried and true principles. Just people today are kind of making them, congruent with the time. So I like the psychology of, why people buy. And going in grad school, I remember a book by Paco Underhill is one of the required readings, Why People Buy. And they would stand outside stores and with the clipboard and watch when people go into a store, would they turn right or left, and would they go all the way back, and what would they do? And from that buyer behavior, they would then determine, okay, we now need to reposition the merchandise accordingly. And same with what you just said. Digitally, what do people do online to make that purchase? What's the online digital buyer's journey? What captures their attention? Because guess what? Attention is a high prized commodity, right?
Absolutely. It's a currency. I mean, it's the main currency these days. It's not dollars. It's attention, essentially. So
For sure. Hey, so on LinkedIn, you've got Ken Magma Marshall. Tell us about that middle name, Magma.
Sure. So not actually my middle name. My full middle name is Kenneth David Warren Marshall II, or that's my full name. But essentially the Magma thing, I was out to brunch with my lovely wife and our CEO. And we were just describing each other's personalities, talking about, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, all that, pseudoscience, but still fun to talk about.
Yeah.
And so he was like, Ken, you're sort of this never-ending, always coming forward, just slightly destructive, beautiful force. And he's like, and he turns to my wife and he's like, hey, Kim, you are the water that sort of cools down and crystallizes him so that he doesn't continue on and hurt himself or the landscape around us.
Awesome.
And I just thought it was so funny. He's like, you are Magma. And I just loved it. And I changed my LinkedIn immediately because it beautifully, captures my personality and temperament. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you could go really, really deep on, historically magma is formed from this, and that really is a word picture of. So I think that's really cool.
Right.
And when you can, and I feel like what you just said there is a really big life lesson for this reason. You were having dinner with a friend, and you could have yucked it up and go, oh, that's pretty cool, yeah. And then, so anyway, what are you doing this weekend? And you could have passed right through that, but you were present enough and noticed something interesting enough to go, you know what? There's a life, professional, personal, principle there that I want to add into my messaging. And you noticed it, and you took action on that. And I think too many times we all get too busy to stop and smell the roses or to notice things around us, to add value to it, to take that and put it into action. And boy, if we could have, like that X-ray vision from a month or 2 months back and go, wow, look at all those things that I could have done, but I was just barreling down the road. So I think that's a really great aha moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you nailed it. And one thing I've noticed is, and I'm sure others have as well, is that a lot of those aha moments, a lot of good ideas. I woke up last night and I have a projection tool that I built for prospects who ask about what kind of return can I see with your campaigns. And so I was building out this tool and I was frustrated with my formula. And all of a sudden I just wake up and I shouted out loud, by the way, Kim, my wife, I'm so sorry for this. I was like, oh, you have to factor in the average, buyer's, value from lead to sale percentage. And so all of a sudden the formula worked, but it was in that, I was unconscious.
Yeah.
But it's usually in those quieter moments, like you're exactly right, when I'm present and I'm just sort of experiencing what's around me, that I have those really cool ideas. So totally agree.
Well, also along those same lines, it's also in the down times that your mind, like you were sleeping and your mind was resting, and then that allowed your subconscious mind to come up with that answer. And so without getting woo-woo, because it really isn't woo-woo, it's just like natural.
Oh, you can go there, Mike.
But it's physiological. Like I'm in Colorado and we've got a cabin up in the mountains, and when we go up there and ride ATV and take hikes and all that, and you're sitting on the deck and it's like, here's this nice, beautiful day. You know what? Oh, there's this cool, I've got to grab that pen and paper and come up with this great idea, because it just comes to you when you're driving in the mountains or relaxing. So I think that that's another huge thing. And I remember about maybe 2 years ago, the speaker and author John Maxwell put out this training on thinking. And he goes, you know what? Too many people don't block off time just to think. And I believe that it is Bill Gates that is still known to this day to take a week. Yeah, and just go up by himself and like just literally unplug and just him in a pad of paper in a room. Think. I think that's a really big thing. And too many times, being type A++, like I am, and I think that you are as well, man, we feel like, hold up, if I'm sitting around thinking, I'm not doing, so let's roll, let's go. And we have to realize that balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right that I totally and naturally skew towards just wanting to take action. So if you look at my very funny looking calendar, it's color coded, but the very first thing when I wake up, after I get a glass of water and splash my face with, water a little bit, some cold water to just wake the system up, I just says coffee, wife, and think, even before I take my puppy on a run. And it's just an unstructured time space to do exactly that. And so very underrated. I think people should go check out another quote unquote woo-woo book that actually is based on some solid principles, is Psycho-Cybernetics.
Yes,
that was very influential in my thinking. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I've got that one on my bookshelf. And then also Psycho-Cybernetics 2000, I think, was the follow-up book where they kind of built off of some of those and brought them into the 2000s. So, yeah, really, really great principles that way. And just to know how your brain literally works and it really translates into business, and it helps your day to day. So yeah, I mean, I think that the woo woo is, oh, just go ahead and just sit there and think about what you want and poof, it'll appear. No, because you have to do something about it, right? The law of attraction works because thoughts are things. And you know why thoughts are things? Because when you start thinking about something, it makes you, write down that idea. Then it makes you talk about it to someone else. And then that kind of brings it into your conversation and consciousness. And then it's like, well, shoot, I start my reticular activator, my brain starts kicking in and going, well, if you're talking about this, then, look at that thing you just saw online. And maybe you ought to buy that URL. And then it starts that process. And then all of a sudden you're talking to someone and you're making a plan on the back of a napkin. Well, yeah, thought doesn't poof 10 seconds later come into something, but the process is, if you take advantage of some of those planning and downtimes and keep the notebook of, hey, here's some great ideas from my brain dump, downtime. I'm not going to take action today on it, but it's right there. So maybe once a quarter, once a month, you're going to sit down and go to your parking lot of list of, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's still something I'm going to keep over there. But now this one right here. So I want to tie that thought into, your title of Chief Growth Officer. And I want to know what that is. And if that role, if I'm correct in thinking that because you've done this merger and maybe possibly you're able to step a little bit out of the day-to-day grind, and now maybe you're in your element of, okay, I'm in the creation mode and I'm in the big picture mode, and the other people are dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but I'm able to get into growth mode and take some of these ideas and flesh them out and things like that. So what does it mean to be a chief growth officer?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I'll start by saying that I did not know what it was prior to joining this company, because I was not an executive. I was more like the managing director of my agency with, a few people that worked, part-time to full-time, and then a handful of contractors that I used. And so to me, I am a visionary type, which I think is rare in conjunction with the next following statement, but I'm one that's obsessed with SOPs and standardization and scalability of deliverables. In terms of productized services, I think we're as queued up as an agency can get, and we're even developing software because of that. So the reason why I chose that title is because I think I've maxed out of doing that, productizing the service. So I'm still the subject matter expert. I mean, we rank for B2B SEO services, B2B SaaS SEO agency. I mean, you name it, go check it out. The proof is in the pudding. But so I was like, I'm maxed out of those processes, so our COO should handle that. As far as handling the specific strategists, and helping them grow, we've got a director of strategy. And so for me, I was thinking two things. One, I'm going to act as our CMO. Nobody in the organization is more capable than me. However, I'm unlike a CMO in that I am the subject matter expert, and we want to build technology. So that would be more like a chief product officer, but we're not a software company. So you see kind of what I mean? It's like I still sell with the CEO, so that's a chief revenue officer. We're building out a sales team. CMO, because I head up the marketing, but most importantly, and my favorite thing, the future of the company is we're building tools and software so that we'll be more like HubSpot than an agency when it's all said and done. So hope that makes sense. I know it's a lot, but that was my thought process, and I loved the term I'm in charge of growth. How cool is that? So,
well, you're in charge of growth without getting into the weeds. The growth might feel like I got to make 20 cold calls so that I can sell one thing and next. And so that's growth. Yeah. But your chief growth officer, hat is more of the 60,000 foot view. You're building bridges to where you want to go. And this one bridge might be this, algorithm or this deliverable or this process, so that as the book, did you ever read the book Built to Sell?
I didn't get through it. It's actually looking at me right now, and I'm embarrassed because I didn't get through it.
Let me tell you, I would recommend to get through it because it's written in, story format, fictional story format. But what a great picture of a fictional character that's like, I hate my business, I want to sell it. And then the, guru comes in and goes, well, we need to polish it up first. So let's really dial it in so that it makes your business attractive to buy. And then through the process of really narrowing down and going, we do one thing well, which is X, and then productizing it, SOPs and everything to where it's like a machine and you're outputting spectacular work and people are happy. And, oh, wow, now the owner's happy and now the employees are happy. Do I even want to sell? So it really just is a great picture of what you were even just talking about. There is the big picture, standard operating procedures, workflows, and things like that. So, boy, I think we could just keep on going down the road. But let's kind of wrap up with what do you like to do for fun? What kind of side hustles do you have? What do you like to do on the personal fun side?
Oh, wow. So a few different things. One, I will say I'm one of those crazy people that gets to do what they're good at, and it brings me joy to build things that don't exist. So not only has my journey as an entrepreneur been fulfilling, it's fun to me, which is insane. But I love this stuff. So anyway, I like working on new tools and different things like that. I've got a few, bestfreelancertools.com is a database that I'm building, essentially because I saw this whole great resignation thing coming a long time ago. And so I wanted to give that as a resource to people. But that's one. I love taking my Australian Shepherd puppy out into the woods, camping, hiking, running, you name it. I currently am doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is very cool because I used to do like football and wrestle around with my friends back in the day. So it's nice to compete again. And then just wherever the day takes us. My wife and I, as you know, we drove cross country from Portland, Oregon to Brooklyn, New York with just a month's notice. And, we just want to keep having adventures. So lots of different things, Mike, lots of different things.
That is awesome. It never gets boring, and that's the spice of life. So I think that is awesome, Ken. Well, let's wrap up with what's the best way that someone could reach out, connect, and learn more about RevenueZen.
Yeah, two ways I would say. One, I'm a chatty guy, so type in Ken Magma into your browser, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. If you add me, you'll see some good nuggets, but also just send me a message. I'm happy to talk. And for anybody out there that thinks, hey, our inbound, we're doing outbound activities, or we're using social media, we don't really see a return on investment, or we want to do it more organically, just go to the site, click on Get a Strategy. We always send those over before we send over a scope of work, which means we have a plan, and we essentially do the strategy in real time on a call before I have any sort of pricing or scope in mind. So those are always free, and I'm always happy to do them. So
awesome. Well, Ken, thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure talking with you today.
Yeah, you too, man. Cheers.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.